tonight, Russia warns Turkey to stop staging provocations against its forces in or near Syria after one of its warships fired warning shots at a Turkish vessel in the Aegean. The Prime Minister meets with a delegation representing the Evangelical Lutheran Church, who are in Jordan to celebrate the lighting of a 12-meter tree at the baptism site. World leaders hail a landmark climate change deal clinched in Paris yesterday after 2 weeks of intense negotiations to limit the rise of global temperatures to less than 2 degrees Celsius. Good evening and welcome to a new edition of the news. His Majesty the King, the Supreme Commander of the Jordan Armed Forces Arab Army, visited the Armed Forces General Headquarters, where he was welcomed by the King's Advisor for Military Affairs and Chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff, General Mish'al al-Zibban. His Royal Highness Prince Faisal bin al-Hussein and other army personnel were in attendance at the meeting. His Majesty discussed with them issues related to training and preparedness of various units. His Majesty the King received a phone call from Yemeni President Abd Rabbo Mansour Hadi, who updated him on developments and efforts to end the war in the country. The King voiced Jordan's support to Yemen and its legitimate government in their quest to regain security and stability in the country and build a better future for the Yemeni people. The Yemeni president voiced his country's appreciation for Jordan's support to Yemen and its people. The Israeli army shot and wounded a Palestinian teenage girl in the West Bank city of Hebron, who they claim was armed with a knife and attempted to stab a pedestrian. 16-year-old Lama al-Bakri was shot near the western entrance of Al-Kirat Arba settlement and then evacuated to a hospital in Jerusalem for treatment. The settlement of Kirat Arba lies northwest of Hebron's old city, which was designated a closed military zone last month in the wake of attack in the area. Palestinians living in the Hebron area have since come under severe restrictions of movement, arrest raids, and invasive security checks by occupation forces. At least 120 Palestinians, including 25 minors and 5 women, have been killed since the beginning of unrest in the West Bank and Jerusalem since the onset of October, while over 13,500 others have been injured. In Syria, intense air and missile strikes on Damascus suburbs held by insurgents killed dozens of people, including children, according to the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights. The observatory said unidentified warplanes hit the town of Douma, northeast of Damascus, and surface-to-surface missile fired by the Syrian army also hit surrounding areas, including eastern Ghouta. These strikes on a school district and other areas killed 2 children and a school principal. State news agency Sana said 3 civilians were killed and at least 30 wounded in mortar attacks targeting residential neighborhoods of Damascus. Most of the victims were school children, said the agency. Separately, the coalition leading airstrikes against Daesh in Iraq and Syria said the United States and allied forces yesterday conducted 15 airstrikes in Iraq and 7 in Syria against the terrorist group. 6 strikes in Ramadi hit multiple Daesh targets as Iraqi forces attempt to retake the city from the group. Other airstrikes in Iraq hit near Mosul, Fallujah, Sinjar, Tal Afar, Sultan Abdullah, Rawah and Qayyara, according to the coalition statement. In Syria, the airstrikes hit near 5 cities, including Daesh stronghold of Raqqa. In a sign of increased tension between Moscow and Ankara, today Russia warned Turkey to stop staging what it called provocations against its forces in or near Syria after one of its warships fired warning shots at a Turkish vessel in the Aegean to avoid a collision. The Russian Defense Ministry said one of its warships, the destroyer Smetlivi, was forced to fire the warning shots early today, and that has summoned the Turkish military attaché over the incident. The military said the Turkish fishing vessel failed to respond to Smetlivi warnings and changed course sharply only after shots were fired before passing within just over 500 meters of the warship. Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Cavusoglu said Ankara is investigating the matter and reiterated Turkey's position that it wants to resolve its difficulties with Russia. World powers met with Libyan officials in Rome on a UN-backed plan that is designed to unite Libya's fractured government and to stop the spread of Daesh militancy in the country. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry and Italian counterpart Paolo Gentiloni, alongside United Nations envoy Martin Kobler, chaired a meeting of foreign ministers and senior officials from North Africa, the Middle East and Europe. Various sides last week agreed to December 16th as a date to sign the deal, but some hardliners are resisting. The agreement would allow new Libyan government to ask for international military assistance to fight Daesh terrorist presence in the country. Western officials and diplomats say the Rome meeting will be an effort to present a united international front, push for a final deal and show Libyans they are supported. Back here at home, Prime Minister Abdullah Mansour met with a delegation representing the Evangelical Lutheran Church, led by Bishop of Palestine in Jordan, in the Evangelical Lutheran Church in Jordan and the Holy Land, and President of the Lutheran World Federation, Munib Yunan. In their meeting with the Prime Minister, members of the delegation praised Jordan's efforts under the leadership of His Majesty the King to promote the values of peace and tolerance among all Jordanians, irrespective of their faith. They also hailed Jordan's role in protecting Islamic and Christian holy sites in Jerusalem and its drive to bring about peace in the Middle East and host refugees. Mansour said Jordan is committed to equitable rights among Muslims and Christians and to preserving the presence of Christian communities in the region as a basic component of the history and civilization of the East. Later in the day, the delegation attended the lighting of a 12-meter Christmas tree at the baptism site by the Jordan River.
I think when we are celebrating this, and it is a national feast, where Muslims and Christians and all sectors of Jordanian people are here together from all churches, from the mosque and it's a national day. It's a national day when we are lighting this tree to tell the world that living together, Muslims and Christians, is possible, and Jordan has become a model. And as it is possible in Jordan, it can be possible in all over the world.
Her Majesty Queen Rania received the First Lady of Gabon, Sylvia Bongo Ondimba, who is on a visit to the kingdom. Of mutual interest to both Queen Rania and Mrs. Ondimba is education. And the meeting focused areas of common interest, a special initiative to upgrade education in Jordan, as well as government efforts to reform the education sector. Pope Francis urged the countries that signed a landmark Paris Agreement on climate change to join in a concerted commitment to put it in practice and to remember the poor as they do so. The Pope was speaking to tens of thousands of people in St. Peter's Square for his noon address. He also made an appeal to countries participating in the Ministerial Conference of the World Trade Organization in Nairobi to pay particular attention to those most vulnerable. Since he became Pope in 2013, Francis has made advocacy for the poor a center point of his tenure.
The climate change conference has just ended in Paris with the adoption of an agreement that many have called historic. Putting it into practice will need a concerted commitment and a generous dedication on the part of all, in the hope that particular attention will be guaranteed for the most vulnerable populations. I exhorted the entire international community to move forward urgently along the path that has been taken in a sign of solidarity that becomes ever more feasible.
A landmark climate change deal was clinched in Paris yesterday, a culmination of 2 weeks of intense negotiations. The deal attempts to limit the rise in global temperatures to less than 2 degrees Celsius and is the first to commit all countries to cut carbon emissions. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon was among the most jubilant leaders, raising their arm on a stage to celebrate the agreement on climate. Here's more.
With a small hammer, you can achieve great things, says French Foreign Minister Laurent Fabius, who announced a landmark climate accord Saturday. Delegates from almost 200 nations witnessed the historic decision to shift away from fossil fuels, an end to nearly 2 weeks of tense negotiations. And world leaders are hailing the deal as truly global, binding both rich and poor nations to curbing their greenhouse gas emissions. Speaking at the White House, U.S. President Obama said the accord shows what is possible when the world stands as one.
This agreement represents the best chance we've had to save the one planet that we've got.
The accord aims to limit the rise in global temperatures to less than 2 degrees Celsius. The binding text also contains loose language, which could enable countries to offset their own emissions by buying emissions credits from other nations. Some protesters say they question how these countries will be held accountable if they do not achieve their targets. But these delegates say the deal is a victory for the planet and for future generations to enjoy it.
A colorful spectacle of fireworks and lights marked the launching of Rio de Janeiro's traditional floating Christmas tree. The massive metal structure, recognized by the Guinness Book of Records as the world's largest floating Christmas tree, lit up for the 20th consecutive year in Rio, ringing in the festive season in Brazil. The tree is 53 meters tall, weighs 350 tons, and uses 2.5 million microlight bulbs to create the 3 designs that were chosen for this season's tree: blue raindrops, a world map, and traditional holiday bubbles. In the coming weeks, the floating tree will be moved around the lagoon so it can be viewed from different parts of the city. Spain will begin their bid for an unprecedented third successive European Championship title against Czech Republic after the draw of the 2016 finals was made at the Palais des Congrès last night. Well, champions Germany are to meet Ukraine, Poland, and Northern Ireland in Group C. Spain, who were also drawn in the same section as Croatia and Turkey, opened up against Group D opponents, Czech Republic in Toulouse on June 13. Host France, who won the 8th Team Euro on home soil in 1984, will launch the championship against Group A rivals Romania in Paris on June 10. The 24-team competition sees 16 teams advance from the group stage, the top 2 in each section, and the best 4 third-place sides, with the final in Paris on July 10th. The expanded finals will be staged in 10 cities across France.
La Belgique, la Belgique, la Belgique, Belgium, Belgium.
Feyenoord, who were reduced to 10 men, held on the draw 1-1 away of Groningen in Eredivisie action. Groningen had the better of the first half and broke the deadlock in the 25th minute when their captain Michel Delieu fired home off a round after Hedwig Meduro's header hit the near post. Feyenoord missed an opportunity to take the 3 points and move to the top of the league, standing alongside Ajax when Tony Vilhena was denied by Groningen goalkeeper Sergio Padleft, footed, saved 8 minutes from time. And finally, cold and partly cloudy conditions continue for the rest of tonight with northwesterly moderate winds and possible rain showers. Similar weather prevails in most regions tomorrow with northwesterly moderate to brisk winds. The Gulf of Aqaba should expect fair conditions tomorrow with northerly moderate to brisk winds and slightly high seas. Next are the lows and highs for tonight and tomorrow. And to end the news is a recap of our top stories. Russia warns Turkey to stop staging provocations against its forces in or near Syria after one of its warships fired warning shots at a Turkish vessel in the Aegean. The Prime Minister meets with a delegation representing the Evangelical Lutheran Church, who are in Jordan to celebrate the lighting of a 12-meter tree at the baptism site. World leaders hail a landmark climate change deal clinched in Paris yesterday after 2 weeks of intense negotiations to limit the rise in global temperatures to less than 2 degrees Celsius. And with this we come to an end. I'm Farah Ajlouni. Thank you for watching and have a good night.